Jackson Tillman, sorry. That song's called Remedy. You're listening to Mornings of Lone Star, 9 a.m. It is time for Meet the Candidates here on Lone Star Community Radio. Of course, my special co-host throughout this whole venture is the effervescent...
You said the E word on the air.
Nathan Arrazate of Montgomery County
Holy
Lifestyle.
Moses.
I'm just trying to be like you, man. But we got a special guest today. We have Kim Franklin running for Constable Precinct number 1. You can check her out online on Facebook, Kim Franklin for Constable, and also Kim Franklin for Constable.org. That's Kim Franklin for Constable.org. And she's sitting with us. Good morning, Kim.
Can I say something?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, this is not sexist.
You don't even wait a minute.
This is not meant to be bad. But we gotta say one thing. And
we're not
choosing favorites.
I know I look good.
So far, she's the best looking candidate for Constable Precinct 1.
Okay, bring it, because that's not sexist at all.
I mean, I know some of the guys did wear makeup. We won't mention those names, but hers blends in better.
And I sort of disagree. Some of those guys they got some pretty faces. I mean, they might have.
Oh, you got to put them out there, boy. We're not going to go there. No banjo music this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for being here and letting us
Absolutely.
be silly.
Oh, now we can go back to being
Now we can go
Thanks,
back.
Nathan.
We just, I don't know. There's a camera in our face, so I'm just, I'm nervous.
So you bring up inappropriate things. Okay,
that wasn't
inappropriate. That's a good tick to have.
You said it was good, didn't you?
That's great.
Well, I'm really happy to have Kim in the studio. Precinct number 1 has a lot of candidates in the primaries coming up for early voting next week, and also, of course, March. And that's something that's always kind of on my mind when I have folks from Precinct number 1 who are running for Precinct number 1. One thing I want to know, Kim, if you don't mind, give me a little background information about who you are, especially what position in law enforcement you hold. Because isn't that a requirement? You have to have a law enforcement position?
Well, you have to be a sworn peace officer through the state of Texas.
Okay. And does that mean you can be a sworn peace officer like 20 years ago? Or does that mean you have to be...
No, he has to be current.
Okay, I'm just wondering. I don't know the rules. So if you don't mind, give me a little bit of background information about yourself and especially where you work today.
Okay, where I work today is the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office for Brett Ligon. I'm a felony criminal investigator for that office. I went to work for him back in December of 2012. And before that, I actually started my law enforcement career 24 years ago. Joined the police academy, graduated, went straight to work for Oak Ridge North Police Department, and I served there for 5 years, just regular patrol. After that, 1998, I went to work for the Precinct 3 Montgomery County Constable's Office in South Montgomery County, and I served there for 14 years. So, like I say, up until December 2012, I was there, came to work for Brett at the District Attorney's Office, and just been enjoying that.
Now, with these transitions, I always wondered with police officers, is it always a choice, or is it something that you kind of like, you say, you know what, there has to be a next step for me, and that's why you chose to go work for Brett? Because that sounds like a neat job, what you're doing over there.
Yeah, absolutely. The District Attorney's Office is one of the most prestigious law enforcement agencies in the county that you can actually go to work. A lot of people line up, try to get in there, so it's limited. I mean, Brett Ligon has done an amazing job with that office. He works for the community. He serves the community, and that's, like I say, that's in my opinion, I mean, it's not, you don't receive a giant rank structure because of it, but just the fact that that's an amazing agency. A lot of people want to go to work there, and there's a line for it.
Now, with these experiences, do you feel they qualify you for Constable Precinct number 1?
Absolutely. The 14 years that I spent with the Constable's Office, I started out there as a regular deputy, serving civil process and just working patrol. And then just through training and continuing education, I graduated through the ranks to sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. And as the captain over that office, I was responsible for every division there, the civil division, the criminal investigations division, the motorist assistance program, and the main part was the administrative issues, handling the budget, writing and implementing policies, internal affairs, disciplinary matters, all of those things that you have to know how to do to go to work in a department and make that department work.
Now, with the political side of Constable Precinct number 1, there's that's one thing I have realized about the Constable's Office when you're running for that position. There is a political kind of angle to it, because not just civil processing, but you try to do other things too to help the community depending on your surroundings. And is there any that you could say right now is the big, I guess, the hot topic with Constable Precinct number 1, and you want to make light of, and especially when you become constable, it's kind of like your political side is you're trying to make sure this office does a certain thing, or meet your goals, or maybe maintain or maybe change So give me a little bit of information on what you think should happen and things like that with precinct number 1.
Well, I think the first thing is effective leadership. When you have effective leadership, or when you have poor leadership in an office, that affects everything from the efficiencies of that office to the productivity, to the morale of the office, and obviously the public perception. So in order to get a group of people to share a common vision, to do the job that we have a goal to do, you have to have good leadership in place and structures that they can follow, policies and practices. People actually like boundaries. They do well with boundaries. And I think that when you have that in place, they become more efficient. They become more productive. And so, yes, there are several areas of the constable's office. Our primary duty is to serve civil process and serve the justice courts. Justice of the Peace, Judge Mack's court is the court that would fall under. And that's our primary duty. But aside from that, we're all police officers, and we all have other duties that are delegated to us by the Commissioner's Court. So we have a duty to oversee those: the mental health, the schools, the Willis ISD School District, and the Lake Patrol.
And with that, too, it's funny, a recurring thing with a lot of the people running for constables, they say community policing. It's kind of a word they like to use to say get more involved with the community. I feel like that should have been already implemented when the precinct office was created, community policing. Now, is that something that's because just the way the office handles itself now that they realize we don't do enough community policing, or is that just kind of a new movement in law enforcement because of the backlash the police are getting all over the country for certain scenarios and things like that?
Well, community policing has actually been around for a long time. The problem is it's just not implemented properly. Basically, what that's saying is that's a philosophy where you have leadership and an office that works in conjunction with the community to try to locate and be proactive in the community, to get out there, work with the community, the businesses, the citizens, to try to find ways that they can better serve that community. And I think that if any law enforcement agency is serving their community, they should be active in that community. And like I say, regardless, if you're not out to put everybody you come into contact into jail, you're there to find out what the community needs and where you can do things better to improve the relationships with them, because a law enforcement agency is only as successful as the relationship they have with their community.
And with Precinct 1 in mind, what do you see that you can achieve with it?
Well, I definitely see that there are a lot of things. There are a lot of the areas. Now, mental health is unique to that office because Precinct 1 is responsible for the mental health of the entire county, not just Precinct 1. So they're the only constable's office that has that unique duty. Additionally, the Willis ISD School District Police, that's unique to that office. So each constable in Montgomery County has a different set of duties that are specific to their unique community. And Lake Patrol is our big hot topic because of the amount of people that frequent there, the amount of people that come in, and people are concerned for the safety, and the people that have grown up on that lake wanting to enjoy the lake, and they should very well be able to, are concerned with a lot of the hazards and the people that come in and aren't familiar with the lake, and they're worried about that. So there are things that we can do to educate the public coming in through community-oriented type situations with the local businesses that are frequented by those people that come to the lakes from out of town, through social media. One of the quickest ways would be to the Precinct 1 website have general information that people can go to for all those areas that precinct covers and receive useful information.
We're sitting with Kim Franklin. She's running for Constable Precinct number 1. You can check her out online, kimfranklin4constable.org. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, if you don't mind, we're going to kind of go into the details of what your platform is, if you don't, because I know everyone kind of asks you what you're doing, and it's important to put yourself in a different position from your other 1,000 other people running for constables. So when we come back, we'll talk more with Kim. I'm with Nathan Arrazate of Montgomery County Lifestyle. You're listening to the Lone Star Community Radio here on irlonestar.com and soon to be FM. So stick around. We got great music. We'll be back. Lone Star Community Radio here at irlonestar.com. Sitting here with Nathan Arrazate, Montgomery County Lifestyle, with Meet the Candidates. Special guest right now is Kim Franklin. She's running for Constable Precinct number 1, and we're back asking the hard questions. She's sweating, and she's ready to get this over with, I bet. No, I'm just kidding.
She brought her own paparazzi. What's up with that? We got to shout out to who this paparazzi is.
What? Okay. You like to call it? You're going to comment about her beauty, too?
What else are you
going to comment about?
Her beautiful personality, her essence.
Oh, he's going
life.
around.
her sharp and dramatic eyes. Kimberly Morgan Sutton, I've known her for a million years. Well, maybe not a million, but a lot. And she is over here taking pictures, videotaping. That's the roving reporter in her. Hi, Merry Christmas. Get out of my face.
Get out of my face.
Let's get back to this lady over here.
Kim Franklin, you visit her online, kimfranklinforconstable.org, kimfranklinforconstable.org. And we're back to the question I kind of teased the last segment is the platform. I know that's kind of important and key for every person running for voted office, and you kind of have to put yourself different than the other ones. So tell me, Kim, what are you doing to make yourself appear better, or at least different from your other? I think there's like 6 other people running for this.
Well, I'll just go with what Nathan said. I put on makeup this morning, and that was the key. No, I guess so. If you're asking me what my goals are
yes.
With the office, like I was saying earlier in the first part of the segment, was that the first and foremost thing we have to have is a good working administration that actually shows up to work, that comes in and provides a good structure for the officers that are working there, so that they know when they come to work every day what's expected, what the goals are, and they have a common shared vision that they all work together as a team. Now, that's easy. Everybody says, well, that's easier said than done. Well, no. I mean, if you have strong work ethic and you have expectations set up, it's the same for everybody, same all the time, that is going to resonate throughout the office. And I think that will improve the time management, the efficiency of the office, the productivity of the office, and it builds confidence, with our community that shows that we are there to serve them. It's not about the administrators there on who's their friend for the day. And then basically, once you've actually created the goals and set the expectations up for that office, then you can work on the things that need to be worked on. Once you get the efficiencies going, then you start looking at what can you do to transform that agency into a better agency that serves the community. And I think initially every officer there is, aside from whatever their duties are, from whatever division they're in, they have a duty to follow and enforce the laws of the state of Texas. They're all police officers. And so that when they're out serving civil papers, when they're out, you don't have a mental health transport 8 hours a day, every day of the week. So there are things that they can be doing proactively, serving the community, engaging the public, making sure that they are out there having citizen input and involvement, and then establishing the partnerships with the surrounding law enforcement agencies where we work together with all of the local agencies. We share information. We update our technology in order to share that information, and everybody works together for a common goal. When you look at Harris County, the criminal element there is slowly moving up into our neck of the woods, and we like our home, our town of Precinct 1 and all of Montgomery County, to be honest with you. And we have to make sure that we're all working together. The criminal element doesn't know the boundaries of Precinct 1, Precinct 2, City of Conroe. They don't care. So we need to make sure that we're sharing information and having everybody work together to make sure that we're all serving the community for the same goal.
Yeah, that's one thing I learned about the constable's office, and probably the most important thing about it is the relationships you have with other law enforcement, mainly because you're not stuck with these borders of just Constable or Precinct Number 1. Y'all are there to help other precincts, especially, like you said, the mental health division of Constable Precinct Number 1 helps the entire county, and having those relationships are important. Now, with that in mind, how do you strengthen relationships besides just responding to a call? Or with other, like, for example, the mental health, they kind of have to call you for that. From what I understand how the procedures work with law enforcement, if they need help with the mental health, correct? They just call you guys and you guys take care of it?
Right. All of those calls are transferred either through the dispatch or through whatever entity they come from directly to that office. Now, as far as establishing the partnerships with the surrounding agencies, I mean, I have a great working relationship with the community leaders, the sheriff now, and then of course the new sheriffs that may come into office here in the next less than 30 days out, and as well as the City of Conroe Police Department. That's an easy thing to do. It's just getting out there and doing it. I mean, if you're not going to share, it's not about who gets to go and make the big bust of the day. It's about how we work together to make our community safer. And it doesn't matter what agency has the information or how you're using it. It's how you share it to work together for the same common goal, and that's making sure the bad guys off the street, making sure the citizens are safe. And right now, with the school district, with Precinct 1 covering the Willis ISD School District, we have to make sure that our kids are safe. And the city of Conroe actually runs right up to the Willis High School. So if a call drops, it's going to be on a different radio channel than whatever. If it comes out through, if it's dispatch, it's going to go through the city of Conroe. It's a different radio channel than the constables are even on. So we have to work on getting the technology together where we are all on the same page. So
just get on Twitter.
No, just tweet it, huh? Well, and they're going to be, and it's not going to be a real hard fix. It's just making sure, and those are things that are slowly happening throughout the last few years. But the fact is, we need to be ahead of the curve. We need to be ahead of the growth that's coming to Precinct 1. Our whole county is growing tremendously. Precinct 1 is growing at a rapid pace, and we don't want to wait until the growth has occurred and we don't have the resources that we need, the technology we need in place to be ahead of that. We need to be making sure we are on top of our game ahead of time and not wait until it's too late.
And that also means that's why it's important to vote for the right person because
Absolutely.
of these transitions and this growth. Because to me, that's probably the biggest struggle with any type of governmental agency is looking at technology and figuring out how to implement it efficiently while keeping it under budget and making sure you're still doing your day-to-day. Because I know, like you said, the Constable Precinct has the normal day-to-day, which is silver processing, but depending on each precinct, they have more things to do. And one thing that kind of amazes me with Precinct Number 1 is the diversity of programs and officers y'all have within the precinct. With that in mind, how do you maintain qualifications and education between these officers? Because you have, from what I understand, you kind of designate, you're a mental health division, you're only qualified, you go through special school to handle mental health situations. But if those dudes are busy doing something else, like how do you handle the lack of, I guess, not foot soldiers, but qualified people to handle these situations? Is it something that across the board with the precinct, you make sure everyone's kind of on the same level of education? Or is it just properly managing these people and making sure they're available when these kind of situations arise?
Well, I'm a big proponent of training. I am a certified police instructor through the state of Texas, and I feel like that is key to us being able to stay ahead of the bad guy. I mean, basically, every officer that works at Precinct 1 should be able to function in any capacity that they're needed to function in. Now, do you put the people with the biggest strength, the certain strengths in certain areas? I mean, yeah, absolutely, yes. You find out, you look at your personnel and see what their qualifications are and see who has the most strong area in one particular area, and that's where you designate them to. But that doesn't mean that you can't be cross-trained, and I think every officer there should have the mental health training. They should have the specialized school training, so that not to mention, we need to be cross-training with our other local agencies, because if you have an active shooter in Willis High School, it's not going to just be Precinct 1 that responds. It's not just going to be the Sheriff's Office that responds. It's going to be Conroe Police Department. It's going to be probably Precinct 2 Constable's Office. It's going to be Willis Police Department. So we need to have some cross-training in place that we can all know how we work, and we do it together, and we're all on the same page.
That's a huge undertaking for going into Precinct Number 1, so I wish you luck when you're elected, if that is something that you're going to focus on. I don't know how you can handle that, especially that's kind of the position as you are running for constable. You manage all of this stuff, and so I don't know how anybody can efficiently handle it. But then again, I'm not a police officer. You guys are a little stricter than I am. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm sitting with Kim Franklin. She's running for Constable Precinct Number 1. You can visit her online, kimfranklinforconstable.org. It's kimfranklinforconstable.org. It's around 9:27. We have about 30 minutes left in this segment. We're going to lead into the Cindy Cochran Show at 10 o'clock. So stick around. I'm hanging out with Nathan Arrazate of Montgomery County Lifestyle. You got a question for Kim? Go on his Facebook. That's Montgomery County Lifestyle. Like it and send in your question through the messenger, I guess, and he'll think about reading it, as long as you're not pretty, because he'll probably want to talk about that. But I'm just kidding, Nathan. Are you listening? What are you doing? No, we're gonna get back to the music real quick.
You're on a roll, bro.
Yeah, here's some Abby Cohn right now. This song's called Southern Charm. You're listening to Mornings with Lone Star here at irlonestar.com, Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. Downtown Conroe, hanging out with Nathan Arrazate of Montgomery County Lifestyle. Nathan, you doing okay?
I'm doing good, but we've got one of those gotcha questions that I think we have to get her on.
Okay. I mean, you're the one that's going to get blamed for everything, so I'm not really worried about it.
No blame. I love the gotcha question.
This is a simple yes or no with explanatory question with comment afterwards, okay? Is it true that you handcuffed a perpetrator to the bumper of a vehicle?
I did. And I'll go ahead and say that the statutes have expired. No, it was all legitimate. It was a very large male. I was on a back road with no backup, and he was fighting me. And so we got one cuff on, and he wasn't going to go for the other cuff. So he got the other cuff slapped on the push bumper of the car until my backup got there. Just was basically... did what I needed to do to prevent the escalation of additional force.
I would call that pretty daggum good police work. What about you, Dick?
I'm disappointed she didn't hurt him.
Well, now we didn't go into more details about the bruises.
The backside of the
seriously
story
all
is going to
over his
remain
face.
unsaid. But
She judo chopped him. He's now a paraplegic.
You know, I just realized I kind of feel bad for the other candidates for the different constables and stuff. We didn't talk about anything like really interesting arrests and stuff. I mean, we heard some, but I kind of like that story. I know it's kind of silly and small, but that's kind of cool. Quit thinking.
And that's just a little, and I have a lot of those stories. I mean, I did a lot of really interesting things. You know, back in the day, it wasn't, you didn't have the backup right down the street like you do now. When I went to work for Oak Ridge, I worked deep nights, and I had one officer in District 2 as my backup and one in Shenandoah. So if they were tied up on a call or at the jail and you had something happening, you might be on your own for a while. So that was a consistent thing. Now, right after the mall was built, I think it was 95-ish, we had the big Salem robbery, and between Shenandoah units that responded, myself, and the sheriff's office responded, we were able to capture 5 of those robbery suspects that turned into this huge theft ring, robbery and theft ring out of multi-state jurisdictions. And I actually won the 100 Club Award for that, the Houston Area 100 Club Award for that.
Congratulations.
So, you know, that was the fun days. You know, sometimes not having the backup around was scary, but it was we learned a lot real quick.
And it was part of police work at the time, and
Absolutely.
thank God we learned from that and the funding and get out there and protect the people.
Well, that's one thing I have a question, too, kind of connecting to, with your extensive history in the law enforcement and today's media, like it's really, I would say it's on an average citizen, there's always a report every day about bad police. And being a figurehead, running for a figurehead position, do you see that being kind of a responsibility of, say, a constable is being more available to the public, not necessarily the media, but being able to be part of the community policing, is talk about what goes on and these things like that? Because even though Montgomery County has been blessed with not having too many controversial police handlings in the past, as much as bigger cities, but you running for this figure position, do you see yourself being more available to people who are asking questions about, like, oh, you handcuffed this guy to a bumper? You know, some people get in trouble for that in certain places, or that kind of BS that goes with the situation of being a police officer. So tell me about that.
Well, I definitely believe that the transparency should be one of the things that's primary in any law enforcement agency, to the extent that you can. You don't want to compromise a criminal investigation while you're trying to be transparent with the public, but you do try to provide as much information so that if the public understands things or is able to the more information they have, the better they understand it. So if you're able to share, or what you're able to share, you should share that, and that gives the public confidence in what the officers are doing, so that they don't think that things are being covered up or that there's anything going on. And that's why I think that videos with the officers are very important, lapel recorders, things like that, because not only does that show transparency to the public, but it also protects those officers from situations where they could be have inaccurate claims against them for wrongdoings. Because a lot of the times you have those, the officers have done everything in their power to do exactly the right thing, but sometimes the stories get changed a little bit. And I'm not saying there aren't bad officers out there. That's just like any profession. There's bad clergymen, there are bad teachers, and so there are bad officers. But that does not make the whole entire gamut of officers in a bad light.
Because I think that's really important because you got to protect your own in a sense of police, but then sometimes things go wrong and things need to be handled, in the public's eye. Especially if we're trusting you to be our safety, and I think that's really it's going to be an uphill battle almost in the future of trusting police around the country. But luckily in Montgomery County we don't have that problem. I mean, it's not a
well. I think in Montgomery County and in Texas and whole, we don't really have that problem as much because I think, and I'm just going to say it, I think it goes back to the individual citizens. We just got a little more of the family values, the real values, the personal values, and taking responsibility for ourselves. I don't think we've allowed from the POTUS on down to sit there and just try to stir us up and divide us. However, like you said, my fear is, the scum from Harris County and from other parts of the country coming in here thinking we're just country folk, thinking they can do something. So you guys have a lot of that on your plate out there in law enforcement you got to be prepared for. So body cams, you like body cams?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and going back on that original question a little bit, two of the hardest things that I ever did in my career was have to have two officers that were eventually terminated for things that they did that were unethical, illegal, and in violation of policies and procedures. And they were blatant, and they were wrong, and they were personal friends of mine. But it was my job to complete the investigation and see why, what exactly they had done wrong. And there wasn't a cover-up. It was terribly hard. I mean, you don't ever want to see an officer out there doing something they're not supposed to do. But at the same time, you have a duty to make sure that those officers are held accountable.
And I think that's why it's important with the technology today is being able to connect with your constable's office through a website or through, not necessarily social media, but, that kind of idea, because we as a citizen, we think of a constable, we think of like someone's in trouble. And not necessarily like, they're just patrolling or they're just doing, to me, I didn't even know what silver processing was until we started this program. And now I think every time I see them, I was like, someone's getting served. But now it's expanding depending on the area, especially if you know these people, because I know community policing is extremely important, and it's going to be a hard task to achieve here in the county because we're all different. There's so many different types of people, especially the different types of roads and different types of communities. So, I mean, I wish you luck on handling that kind of stuff because that's going to be kind of weird. Wouldn't you agree? It has to be kind of a hard thing to look at because we have so many different types of people here. Right.
Well, and that's what's unique about each constable's office. I mean, like I say, Constable Hayden, he has a certain type of environment that he has to deal with in his precinct. Precinct 2 has a certain type. Precinct 3 has a totally different gamut of people. And so Precinct 1 has a unique perspective of, we have, like I say, some certain duties that we're the only constable's office that has those particular duties. But overall, we all are responsible for the civil process. And, that's when you say not knowing what civil process is, that goes beyond subpoenas and citations. Civil process is a lot more in-depth than that. A lot of people don't understand what writs are. You see somebody's property, you have to be able to properly calculate what you're seizing in order to satisfy that judgment and know what the laws are to allow you to do that. So there's a whole lot more that goes into civil process than what people really think. Yeah, the subpoenas, the citations, those are the standards that you come into contact with the constable's office. A civil process server can serve those, to be quite honest with you. But it's the other in-depth types of writs and things that are required to be served by the constable and handled, and that takes a certain amount of training and skill. There is a civil process certification that I tested for, and you have to serve civil process for a minimum of 3 years in the state of Texas to even qualify to take the test. And that's a unique type of certification. It's not required to work at the constable's office. It's not required to serve civil process. But I think as the chief administrator of an office that you should know what you're doing and how it's done and why it's done, because you have the civil and financial responsibility of that office that you're accountable for. So you need to know what you're doing. And so those are important aspects. Again, it's not a requirement, but it's very important.
We're sitting here with Kim Franklin on Meet the Candidates with Nathan Arrazate. We're going to take a quick break before we do our closing segment. So stick around. You can always ask questions of Montgomery County Lifestyle for any of our candidates. Just like them on Facebook and send us a message. We got great music for our break. Here's some Gene Watson for you. The song's called One-Sided Conversation. We'll be back with Kim Franklin running for Constable Precinct number 1. That's Tony Ramey. Bullets first. You're listening to Mornings Lone Star. Kim has a couple of minutes, so we're going to let her have the mic until we move over to the Cindy Cochran Show here on Lone Star Community Radio for ending our Meet the Candidates segment. So, Kim, if you don't mind, just kind of give us why we should vote for you and more information, where they can contact you, all that good stuff.
And would you like me to talk to Tony and see if that can be your campaign song?
Absolutely. That was a good one. Well, first of all, I want to say that, I know there are 6 candidates running for this office, and I'm 6. So the choice is out there. People have a choice this time, and that's a really good thing. I mean, that's what democracy is all about. And it's very important for people to know who they're voting for and why they're voting for them, not just because they've known them their whole life, or they're a friend of theirs, or another politician told them that was a good choice. They should, really look at the backgrounds and see, because putting on a badge, law enforcement isn't just another job. It's a profession. It demands honor and integrity, and I think that is the most important thing, is the character of the person running any position, or in any position that's the chief administrator. People have to have an example to follow. And I've chosen to run for constable for these simple reasons. I grew up in Precinct 1. I raised my kids in Precinct 1. I've dedicated my 24-year law enforcement career to serving the citizens of Montgomery County, and I care deeply about the future of law enforcement here. As a parent, I understand the needs and the concerns, the safety of our schools, our neighborhoods, our businesses, and I'll make those my top priorities. I'm not running for constable to improve my livelihood or to benefit personally. I chose to run for constable to improve the safety and livelihood of the citizens in my community. And I hope that, people will take the time to go out and learn the backgrounds of the individual candidates. I'm the only candidate with the overall background and extensive experience in both criminal law enforcement and the execution and service of civil process that can go to work on day one as constable.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And if you're just now catching the tail end, Kim Franklin's running for Constable Precinct number 1, and she needs your vote. You can find more information about her at kimfranklinforconstable.org or on Facebook. And like I said, if you're just now tuning in, we'll be podcasting this Meet the Candidate segment soon on SoundCloud and YouTube, and also on our website, irlonestar.com. Nathan, thank you so much for coming in and being part of this. Who's coming up tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Commissioner Charlie Riley out there in the thriving metropolis of Magnolia. If you folks are listening, go to Charlie Riley's Facebook page and let's command him to bring his guitar, because he can sing, he can songwrite. We need him to play the guitar on the air.
Kim, thank you so much for coming in and letting us know who you are and what you represent. We look forward to seeing more of you here at Lone Star Community Radio.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. There you go. And then we got the Cindy Cochran Show coming up next, so stick around. We have a huge lineup today. We have talk shows all the way to 3 p.m. today, so hopefully you stick around on Lone Star Community Radio.
What I need is a man.
Thank you for checking out a podcast on Lone Star Internet Radio. Lone Star Internet Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas. If you are interested in sponsoring a program for Lone Star Internet Radio, just visit us online at irlonestar.com or message us on Facebook. We are always taking song requests on Twitter, and if you are interested in getting involved with the station by either hosting your own show or if you want to be a DJ, just contact Dick at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Internet Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station.